Hey guys, let me explain some words that can sound really big and fluffy in English land, but they're actually very simple. So we have fancy words for simple concepts, and you can get this. Today we're going to talk about the difference between a clause and a phrase. And please note the spelling of clause. I am not talking about Santa, and I'm not talking about things that come out at Halloween. So today, let's talk about an independent clause. This is a fancy term for a simple sentence. A clause will have a subject, it will have a predicate, like a verb, and it can stand all by itself. Translation: an independent clause can be a simple sentence. Wah! Get it? Independent, it can stand by itself, just like you in the future, I hope. Independent. Okay, that's what an independent clause is. Subject, verb can stand by itself. Okay, next one. A dependent clause has a subject and a verb, but cannot stand by itself. It depends on, it leans on something that's independent. So a dependent clause has a subject, has a verb, but it depends on, leans on something else that's stronger. For example, on your taxes, your parents likely claim you as dependents because in most cases you depend on your parents for food, shelter, clothing, love, etc. Those are the things that you need from them. Dependent. All right. Now, a dependent clause typically starts with what I call a needy word. And I put needy words into triangles. A word like when. See right here, when. If I said to you by itself, when the bell rings, you're going to want to know what comes next. When the bell rings, we leave class. When the bell rings, it's time for lunch. When the bell rings, the school day is over. When the bell rings, leads itself into another idea. It cannot stand by itself. If I just said, the bell rings, you'd be like, good, I'm glad the bell rings. But when I say, when the bell rings, and you're going to want something more. I could say the same thing with if. If it rains, if it rains what? If it rains, the game gets postponed. If it rains, my shoes are going to get wet. If it rains, my driveway is going to turn into a mud hole. That's what it means if it rains. So those are words that are needy and they set the dependent clause up to need something else, to need the independent clause. All right, so we have two different kinds. Independent stands by itself. Got a subject, got a verb, all good. Dependent clause has a subject, has a verb, but it needs something else. It has to be attached to something else. And finally, the difference between a phrase and a clause is very simple. A phrase is missing something. Either it's missing a subject or it's missing a verb, or sometimes it's missing both. Like on the way to grandmother's house. Well, I don't know, that's a prepositional phrase. I have no subject, I have no verb. So a phrase is missing a subject or missing a verb or missing both of them. A clause has a subject, it has a verb, and it can stand by itself most of the time. All right, so I'm going to make a second video and we're going to do a practice of an IXL where you look at the difference between an independent and a dependent clause. You can do it.